Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Hello, welcome to today's edition of Money Radio on Leadership Podcast. Money Radio is, of course, that program that brings you the latest developments in Nigeria's business and economy cycles and issues of businesses around the world. My name is Innocent Odo, and today we're going to look at a very critical sector of Nigeria, which is the digital space. We're talking digital space because it has become so important in the life of Nigerians, and we are looking at how the digital space, especially the social media angle of that space, is being used as an instrument that is presenting some disturbing phenomenon to Nigerians in recent times. You may recall that the 2023 general election, especially the presidential election, has generated some real controversies surrounding the outcome of the result, especially the issue of the processes leading to that outcome. And so the social media space is awash with a lot of ugly content. That space is one area that I would like to say that decent people may find it difficult to exercise their presence there because of the hate speeches and the very terrible contents that we have in that space. And so today we are looking at how to curb this menace of hate speech and fake news at the digital space, especially in the social media angle. Social media has come to dominate the life of Nigerians and, of course, has made some very positive impact in the life of Nigerians, while also helping the people to connect and grow businesses. But in recent times, the outcome of the 2023 election has not been really going down well with Nigerians, and there is this speeches that are not good enough, and of course counter speeches and the rest of them. So we are going to talk about how we can curb this menace of fake news and hate speeches and other very, very undesirable contents in the digital media space of Nigeria. I'm not alone in the studio. I'm here with my regular guest, who is also a very good a specialist in ICT. With him, I will have to do justice to this very important program today. I'm talking about no other person than Hanil Defar. Hanil, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we're talking about curbing the digital media space of hate contents and fake news. Now, you are an ICT expert. This social media has come to dominate the Nigerian media space in recent years. While we celebrate the positive impact it has made in trying to connect everybody to share its ideas and share its dreams, but in recent times, especially after the election, I think before the election, there was some really very ugly developments in social media. And then after the election, of course, the tension has been doused, maybe due to the outcome of the election that some people feel so aggrieved, and they have resorted to all manner of slur speeches, hate language, and all sorts of fake news. Some say even fake audios, troubling that space. And so we're not trying to see how is it possible, for instance, to begin to, if it is not well addressed now, and properly so, it may spell real doom for Nigerian people as a because there's so much incitement in that very space. And
Well, the first thing is I will still stand by my opinion that the social media space should not be regulated. However, in managing the situation that it brings forth, it should be monitored. I'm more keen on monitoring than regulation, and the reason is simple. The citizens don't trust the regulators. So if we're to be in a country where the regulators understand the concept of digital privacy or data privacy, even though we know that there's an agency that's already been set up in line with that, yes. If we're in a country where the regulators understand the core importance of data privacy and can adhere to the principles of data privacy, citizens would have been able to let go the concept of monitoring and say, okay, you can regulate. But in this case, we truly don't know what it would become a political battle. It's instead of it being um, a national security concern, it becomes a political concern. So that's been my opinion as regards the social media thing. Regulating it is a no-no for me. Maybe when somebody that I believe would have or would understand the concept of data privacy and digital privacy comes on board as at the aim of affair, then we can begin to push for regulations. But for me personally, I want more of a monitoring whereby the the users know that they are being monitored, and as a result of that, they manage what they put online, knowing fully well that when they put anything that contradicts or that can be claimed to be a concern of national security, the law enforcement agency can pick up such person, trace such person, pick them up, and prosecute them if the case need prosecution. So uh, that's been my case, and that's been my opinion, and that's will still be my opinion as regards this matter.
Okay, the problem, however, is that even the regulator, the Nigerian Communications Commission, have also said that they don't have that kind of, they don't meddle into trying to, you know, control content being dished out on the social media. This was a statement issued by the Public Affairs Director of Public Affairs, yes, of course, the Director of Public Affairs, NCC, Ruben Moka, recently. That when one, I think it was one civil society organization that paid them a visit and asking them, the NCC, that is, to intervene in this whole ugly phenomenon going on in the social media to see if they can actually help control or regulate that sector. But the answer from the NCC is that they don't do that. Why they don't do that, I cannot explain. And I want us to begin to really look at these issues. Is it possible that some of these very, really ugly contents can be expunged from the, because it deals with the kind of psychological trauma you get sometimes when you read some of these.
Well, NCC are not that's not in their act. The act that establishes NCC, that's not part of their mandates. So regulating what goes in and what comes out is making the infrastructure available to access and communicate,
Yes.
access the internet and communicate. So that's their mandate. So regulating what goes in and comes out of the social media is really not their case or their area of focus. However, I've written an article, I think a couple of days ago, on the need for cyber police. This is where it comes from.
Yes.
And you need the digital you need a digital law enforcement agency, completely different from the police, because it can be overwhelming that even the digital space will have more crime than the physical space. That's the state at which we're going into now.
Yes.
So you can now say the physical, it's possible anyway, countries can merge both the physical and the digital police together. But I think it's going to be effective, and there's going to be a clear line of purpose where you separate the digital police from the physical police. And by doing that, you have highly trained technical um, digital officers, cyber intelligence officers that know how to, no matter how you, as long as it is in the internet that activity was carried out, they can trace you, they can track you, they can monitor you, they can get you. If you like use a fake identity, if you like use a spoofed identity, you can be gotten, you can be tracked, you can be traced. So, but the current police force don't have that technical know-how. Okay, so we would need an agency, a law enforcement agency, saddled with that responsibility. Now, if we know that there is an agency probably a cyber intelligence agency saddled with that responsibility. They know how to carry out intelligence from the cyberspace. They know how to track people from the cyberspace. They know how to monitor the social media content, because we're talking about cyber intelligence. Cyber intelligence has 5 major domains. The first domain is the dark web intelligence, which most persons really don't focus on. But that's where the narcotics, the buying of guns, that's where the terrorists use to do their meetings, to do their communications, because it is a network that is on top of the regular internet. So you really can't access it from your regular browser. It has a unique means of accessing it, and that's where you see where they sell a request for human parts. You see where. So if you're complaining about the social media, I really don't know what will happen when you access the dark web. Wow. Because there is need for us. The cyber intelligence is supposed to carry out intelligence first on the dark web. Then we now carry out intelligence on the open web, which is the open source intelligence, where you gather intelligence from signal intelligence or any form of digital or electronic based intelligence. Then you will now gather intelligence. The third domain or under cyber intelligence is now the social media. Yes. So it's beyond just social media. We are concerned about social media because that's what are affecting us now. But beyond the social media, there are other forms or other domains of intelligence, digital intelligence that needs to be captured. Because the old narcotics, they exist in this part of the world. Where do they communicate? The terrorists, they communicate from somewhere that is on the internet. However, not directly on the internet, because they know that the internet is not as secured as we all think. So there is a platform that is being used called the dark web, which is a platform that exists on top of the internet, highly secured, has not been broken since it's been established. No, the only way you can get intelligence is to be a to be a user of the dark web and act as though you are a user of narcotics. So it's beyond the social media. Social media is just one domain, and we are so much focused on it. Meanwhile, there are other aspects. Yes. What about the digital forensics? If crime is committed now, how do you carry out digital forensics to showcase evidence in the court of law? So which is also another domain of so then we're not talking about threat intelligence, cyber threat intelligence. So these are different domains under cyber intelligence. So and these are the domains that the cyber intelligence agency should be focused on. Nothing they sleep and wake up from the internet. All their life is largely internet related. So it's something we should look at and not. Yeah, the social media is a concern now, but if you think beyond the social media and you have a solution that addresses that intelligence concept of the cyber intelligence concept, it will address the social media, but beyond that, it also address other forms of crime that even affects the physical domain.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned there's something very significant here where we're throwing light on this issue, and that is the question of cyber policing. Now, a lot of people may say, what is that? Cyber policing? What would be the measure? What would be the modalities? How can they track people? How can they do that? What kind of investment do we really need to project and then begin to implement such program and such a magnitude, which requires a lot of technical skills before you can actually implement such. So, can you really break it down for people to understand what exactly you mean by this cyber police?
Okay, a cyber police, or I will call it more of like an agency. Is an agency that should be responsible to manage cyber-related crime, manage, prosecute, monitor, and engage in any form and investigate any form of cyber-related crime. Just as we have our regular policing that largely what they do is purely physical-related crimes. Either it's the cyber police or the cyber digital police would focus largely on the cyber on internet-based or cyber-related crime. And the reason is simple. Every form of crime that exists in the physical domain, every form of crime that exists in the physical domain, there is a corresponding similar feature of crime that exists in the cyber domain. Every form. So it now means that you're not just dealing with physical crime. You're now talking about cyber-based crime. Yes, and it's really, really require high level of technicality, which I believe we have. Even if we don't have, the skills can be acquired. These guys can be trained in it and they can grow in it. AI is coming to make it quite easy, and some of the intelligence that AI can be able to gather. But beyond that, the agency would be responsible for any form of cyber related crime. And that goes into digital propaganda, because there is the physical form of propaganda, but there is digital propaganda. And any media that would want to engage in any form of broadcasting should have a level of, like all these bloggers who we don't know, or someone just pop up from somewhere and start blogging and all that, and we really don't know where they are getting most of their content from, whether they are fake news, misinformation, or disinformation. We really don't know. But if there is an agency in line with that, then that agency will be responsible for who posts what, how, where you got your, well, I don't know if that corresponds with journalism ethics, but where you got your content from and your evidence and all that. So the digital police is largely going to be like the Dubai now. It was strictly, the investigation of Hush Puppy was strictly done by the digital police arm of the Dubai police force. The physical arrest was done by the physical police. Because FBI in the US, they handle both physical and digital, not policing, investigations. They are largely an investigation agency. China has their own digital police, separate from the physical police. Some states in India have their own digital police, cyber police, different from the physical police. So what stopped us? These are some countries that already have this thing existing. So what stopped us from now looking at it now that we are concerned about what happens in cyberspace? What stopped us from now getting involved in establishing that form of agency?
There's a lot of work to do, if you ask me, and that is where it requires the technical expertise of people like you to help out in this situation. If you're still with us, we'll be talking about curbing the menace of hate speeches and the fake news in that space, especially on social media. And I've been in the studio with ICT expert Hania Defaru. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Don't go away.
For sponsorship and advert.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back. If you're just curbing the digital media space of hate content and fake news, I've been in the studio with Hania Defaru. Before we went on that short break, Hania, you were talking about Nigerians and their expressions on social media. Now, you can see that after the elections, there was intensity in the way people reacted and still reacting to the outcome of that election. And so that is not something that Nigerians take lightly, but some of the contents are really, really disturbing. Now, some people are also adding another fuel to the fire. We heard that the presidential candidates of the Labour Party to this alleged voice, audio conversation rather, was you know, allegedly tapped by an unknown source, and a media organization published that alleged audio conversation, and so it went viral, and there's a lot of backlash, massive reactions, counter, you know, narratives, and the rest of them, actually trailing that particular, you know, look at that audio. So the question now is talking about policing that digital space and issues like this. We have an act that prohibits, you know, people from tapping personal their consent and then making it public. And so these are some of the dangers of having an unrestrained, you know, digital space in this time of tension. So how do we begin to relate to curb this matter, even if the regulator has absolved itself of not having the power to do so? I think there's supposed to be a new dimension to how Nigeria should react to issues rather than taking this very uncouth way of language.
Okay, well, we need to understand that technology has been embedded into the whole process. Looking at it from the electioneering process, technology has been embedded into it. What's it called? The commission, the electoral commission, also makes use of social media as a major form of communicating with people. So all major aspirants or candidates, same thing. They use social media as a major form of finding, expressing opinions on matters. So exempting or now knocking off social media completely would be disastrous because it has started already. If it was before the election, INEC stopped using social media to communicate. Most candidates stopped using social media to communicate, and the social media was completely knocked off prior to the election. It would have been easier to now say, okay, anything you see on our social media, it's not from us and all that. Then it would have been easier also to manage issues that would have come from the social media because at that point it's not a major form of communication. But now that it is a major form of communication, what we do at this point is to manage it to the purest minimum and the best ability that we can. Yes, concerns have been raised as to the issue of capturing audio conversation of persons. That really that completely is not a concern for social media. Was just a tool to share it. You take off social media from that narrative, the person would have still been able to capture the audio. The person would have still been able to, if there was doctoring or whatsoever form as alleged, they would have still been able to doctor the audio. What they wouldn't have been able to do is to share the audio. And that does not mean that they won't be able to share it on social media. It can now be flying on personal phones as against the social media. Which, let's say you get it on WhatsApp, everyone gets it on WhatsApp, and now everybody has their own personal opinion and are taking opinions on that matter without even allowing the victim to respond. So social media is now creating, bring all the food to one table. Let's deal with it there. So when you are dealing with things on the social media, definitely because there's no restriction, people are at liberty to air out their views, share their opinion, because it is largely an unrestricted media. They can dish out their mindset, and it's up to you to take it or not take it. That now brings us to the case of cyberbullying,
Mm.
which should or would definitely would be the responsibility of the digital policing, because at that point now they know what forms the crime cyberbullying,
Mm.
what forms the crime cyber harassment. Because there is bullying, there is harassment, there is stalking. So I don't know, every form of crime that has a physical concept has a corresponding cyber feature. So you all these crimes they exist, they exist. So the digital police would now be able to manage and know what to do, because they've been trained, they would have been trained on how to do it. But taking on social media, the audio would have still been captured if it was captured, it would have still been doctored if it was doctored, it would have still been shared if it was as it was shared, only that there would have been no place, a uniform place for everybody to go and share their opinion. You get? But there's going to be this internal hatred, because you are more of like, you have an opinion to express, but there's no way for you to express it. The day that you want to express it, now it's likely going to now be physical.
Mm.
You get? It's likely going to be physical. And when it's physical, more damage. It's going to be more damaging, because as it stands now, people are expressing their opinion. Some will have expressed, and that's it, and it ends there.
Yeah.
But those that won't be able to express can now express physically. And when they are just imagine the way people are expressing their opinion on the cyberspace, and they want to express it physically. How do you think it would be?
Wow, that would be dangerous. Very, very dangerous. But as we continue to interrogate these issues, yes, this is a social media, the digital space is one area where people express all manner of feelings, some motivated ideas, and all sorts of things. Now, sometimes when we ask questions about Nigeria and Nigerians, with the kind of thing that you see on social media, I'm talking about the mindset that people go there to express on social media, the hate, the bile, the malicious talk, there's so many things like that. You now begin to ask yourself, how did we come to this point where we have not been able as a people to create what they call a consensus of ideas about what a nation should be, and the standard for recruiting leaders of that nation, and the process of also making sure that everything is transparent and free and fair, so that people don't get this aggrieved so much to the extreme that they are virtually calling down fire to rain on the entire country because of the outcome of an election.
Okay, now you're going to the roots of the problem.
Yes.
Because social media, if you're just talking about social media and the regulation and all that, it's largely, you are treating the symptoms.
Yes.
The actual root of the problem is the fact that we've not found uniformity in our way of life and in our individual places. However, we go to the same place of work, we go to the same worship center, but there is still deep within us, there is still that line of division deep within us.
Yes.
That if the time comes, we will, without hesitation, we would have to pick. Yeah. How can we go to a state whereby I am first in Nigeria, second in Nigeria, and third in Nigeria? How do we address that? And addressing that is a political you address it politically. It's not, you don't address it from an administrative standpoint, because it was given birth to from the political space, so it should be addressed from the political space. Not until it is addressed, we will continue. If you regulate the social media, regulating does not mean that you will stop me from posting. When we knocked off Twitter the other time, where people not posting, people were still going on Twitter. So we don't have the technology. Even China, as large and as huge as China, regulating their own social media, people are still communicating without the government's interference. So you can always bypass technology. You can't restrict technology. That's technology. So it's going to be difficult to be able to regulate and implement the regulation. When that ban was announced, account. I told us that it can't work because the only way you can regulate that is to tell your ISPs block Twitter IP address so people can access Twitter.
Yeah.
But if you go use VPN to access Twitter, there are browsers that come built in with VPN which you don't need to pay for.
Yes.
So with those kind of browsers, you can access Twitter with those kind of browsers. So how do you want to regulate that? So someone can actually go create user account, beyond creating user account, with unknown user, unknown name, and still push out whatsoever propaganda or fake news he or she wants to push out. So how do you get persons like that if you don't have the agency that does that, which is what I've been recommending. But beyond getting the agency that does that, you also have to ensure that there is that you knock off that line of separation that is deep within every single individual in this country.
Oh, what a wonderful time it has been with you, Haniel, talking about these issues. My producers are telling me that the time is up. I wish we could have another time to go on with this very important topic. You heard it from the mouth of the experts in the field of ICT on what the nation and the Nigerian people must do to ensure that we begin to reduce the intensity of the violent language and hate contents and fake news that's really disturbing on the social media space, so that we can guarantee some sanity in the Nigerian digital media space. We have a nation to grow even after bitter contestations of political offices. Yes, we know that the elections have ended. They've only ended in one leg. The other leg of it has also shifted to the tribunals, where the last that happens to be the last lap, where the judges will now have to determine the real processes and outcome of the election. But for now, we ask Nigerians to remain calm, be peaceful, and law-abiding in whatever you do, and tone down the rhetorics on social media, as well as try to be more patriotic in the way you relate to issues and using fair language to address your compatriots. And that way, I think we begin to douse the tension. It's on that note that we call it a day on today's edition of Morning Radio. I've been in the studio with Hannah Defaru doing justice before we had a voice again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, we ask you to remain blessed and stay away from trouble. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.